Lightboard video is going to provide you with a quick and easy way to draw out the brachial plexus. So specifically, I'm going to be focusing on a couple of mnemonics and going through the major terminal branches as well as the specific compartments and the nerves that are innervated by these branches, specifically for the upper limb. So firstly, if we look at our ventral rami stemming from the spinal cord, we can see that the brachial plexus is going to be made up of contributions from C5 through to T1. So specifically, we see the first part of the brachial plexus, which is referred to as our roots, so coming from the roots of each major nerve. We have the roots of C5 and C6 joining together. C7 is going to be our middle child, so it is going to travel on its own, and then C8 and T1 are going to partner up. So when you remember the brachial plexus, I want you to actually think of a tree and remember the organization of a tree. So firstly, we have our roots. Our roots are then going to form trunks, so roots of a tree, trunk of a tree. So at about this level over here, C5 and C6 are going to form the upper trunk. C7 is going to then continue as our middle child, forming the middle trunk. And then C8 and T1 are going to form the lower trunk. Essentially what happens then with our trunks, they're each going to give two divisions. So we have an anterior and a posterior division to each. So if we draw in our divisions, so stemming from the upper trunk, the first is going to be the anterior division. We also have a posterior division then, which is going to join with the posterior cord from the middle trunk. Sorry, the posterior division. In addition, we're going to have a posterior division of the lower trunk join with the posterior divisions of the upper and the middle trunk as well. So what essentially happens here is the posterior divisions of both the upper and lower trunks as well as the middle trunk will join together to form a cord. So in orange, the cord that is going to be formed from the posterior divisions is referred to as the posterior cord. And then you might be wondering, well, what happens to the anterior divisions of our trunks? So the anterior division of the upper trunk is then going to join with the anterior division from the middle trunk. And this is going to form the lateral cord. So what is important to remember when we're talking about the cord specifically, these are in relation to the axillary artery, which is running through the axilla. So the lateral cord is going to be lateral to the axillary artery, posterior cord is going to be posterior, and then medial, and so on. What happens when we reach this lower end then of our diagram? The anterior division of the lower trunk has taken a leaf out of C7's book and decided that it is going to run by itself. So what happens is the anterior division is then going to form a single cord, which is going to be our medial cord. Okay, so up to now you can see we have our roots, we have our trunks, divisions, and then cords. The last thing then that we require is going to be the terminal branches associated with each cord. So if I change colors again, so the lateral cord is going to give rise to two major terminal branches that you need to know. So the first one is going to be the musculocutaneous nerve. The origins of the musculocutaneous nerve are going to be C5 C6, and C7. The second branch of the lateral cord is going to be the lateral branch of the median nerve. And you'll see what happens to this in a second. Lastly, the medial cord then is also going to give rise to two major terminal branches. The first, which is going to be the most inferior nerve, is going to be the ulnar nerve, which then has an origin of C8 and T1. The second terminal branch then is going to be the lateral branch of the median nerve. So this is going to be the medial branch of the median nerve, which joins together with the lateral branch to form probably the most important nerve of the upper limb, which is going to be our median nerve. So the origins associated with this is going to be C5 all the way through to T1. So these are three of our major branches. We only have two more, which are then going to stem from the posterior cord. So the posterior cord then is going to give rise to the axillary nerve, which has origins from C5 and C6. And it will also give rise to a terminal branch, which is going to be the radial nerve. The origins of the radial nerve are going to be C5 through to T1, like the median. So this is essentially how you draw out the rough skeleton of the brachial plexus. There are a couple of ways to help you actually remember how to do this. So as we've gone along, I've spoken about the different parts or segments of the brachial plexus, but there's actually a couple of ways to help you remember from the most medial to the lateral compartments. There is a really cool mnemonic that you can use for those of you that tend to hang out at the uni bar. This could come in really handy as well. So starting from the most medial aspect, we have our roots. So at the top here, we'll just put an R. We then have our trunks. So this will be T. We then have our divisions. We then have our cords. And then the last one, we have our branches. So if we work from medial to lateral then, we have, so the mnemonic that we're going to use is ready to drink cold beer. So ready to drink cold beer. So that's how you should be able to remember the order. There's also another mnemonic to share with you in how to actually remember the sequence of the terminal nerves or branches from the most superior to the inferior at their divisions. So the mnemonic we use here, so if we just look at the beginning or the first letter of each major nerve, we have M, A, M, R, U. So sticking with our beer theme then, we have most alcoholics must really urinate. Cool. And then lastly, what I need you to remember is the origin of each of the terminal nerves. So again, we have another mnemonic. This one's kind of cool because it actually relies on you relying on your hand. If you want to be really creative, you can actually label from your thumb through to your pinky the roots. So it goes, 3 musketeers assassinate 5 rats, 5 mice, and 2 unicorns. So 3 musketeers is going to be your first 3 fingers. So we have C5, C6, C7 is going to be our musketeers. Assassinate, so in the shape of a gun, you're going to have C5 and C6. And then our 5 rats are going to be all 5 fingers, so it's going to be C5 all the way through to T1. 5 mice is going to be the same deal, and then 2 unicorns is going to be your 2 most medial fingers. So this is going to be C8 and T1. So if we just write that in while we go through again, so I'll just use this hand. So we have 3 musketeers, so this is going to be C5, C6, T1. Assassinate, C5, C6. 5 rats, so this is going to be C5 to T1. 5 mice, and 2 unicorns, C8 and T1. So I hope that this gives you a bit of an insight on how to actually draw out the brachial plexus. I've gone through a couple of really cool mnemonics that actually helped me to remember how to draw out this plexus. What I need you to now focus on is each of the terminal branches. You need to be able to tell me what each branch is going to innervate, both the motor and the sensory components. So while you prepare for your examinations, make sure that you extend this diagram to actually include the motor innervation, so what movements or what muscles are going to be responsible by that specific nerve, as well as the sensory innervation. So which regions of the skin in the body are these specific nerves going to innervate? Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you enjoy this video.